Welcome back. I'm going to try something a little different today. Just thought I would bring you along. I've got my wet palette, I've got some white here, and I'm starting off with a few details that they both share. So I'm starting with a similar color. And on the back of these there is a license plate area, so I'm going to fill that in. Oops, I got a little bit on the side there. But I'm just going to fill that in, and then later I will be able to do the highlights on it. So I'm going to try to keep the camera rolling and just do some painting, but I'm also trying out my magnifying glasses. So it's going to be difficult me trying to keep this in focus for me and in focus for the camera at the same time, and we'll just see how this goes. But I have to look out the side of my eyes to get some more paint. I want to kind of, for you guys and for myself, get an idea of how long it takes, a little bit of prep work and stuff like that. So already got the primer on it, of course, and got that done, and I sat down and kind of figured out, went through the manual, went through the box, looked at some photos to get an idea of like the colors I wanted to do for the different characters and stuff. And so then I could start working. Now another reason I wanted to start with the white, which seems weird, and this is going to be tricky not to mess that up later, is that the fox is wearing a white shirt, and it's going to be hard for you to see down in there. So I'm going to get started painting and then see if we can get it to show up later on camera, because I want to get down in there without messing up too much of the other stuff. Plus, underneath the fox's chin, the fur is white. We'll leave the nose black, although I'll come back with black paint and do that later. But I knew I needed to get in there in this tight spot and get that white done first. And that does not look too bad. Just need to smooth the paint out a little bit. Don't want it to dry in a lump. Now the biggest thing to remember, and I try to tell myself this, so I'm talking to myself as I'm talking to you, okay? And I set my water too far away. Now this paint is already pretty thin, so that helps. The white's a little thick, but it's not bad. But it's usually better to get 3 quick thin coats as opposed to 1 thick coat, because you are not going to get that thick coat to spread evenly and look good. But if you do several thin coats, just let the paint kind of flow off the brush. So let's see, I think, yeah, let's do this. So if you have to come back and paint again, don't worry about it. So if you're thinking the paint is looking thin and you could see too much stuff through it, especially your lighter colors, your whites, your yellows, some oranges, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and tell yourself, all right, I'm going to make at least 2, probably 3 passes with this color. And of course, as soon as I sit down and start painting, the cat is at the door wanting in. Nice sunny day. And it's wanting back in already. But I'm going to keep painting for now. She can sit out there. It takes a little getting used to of these glasses. Trying to look around the glass to do the stuff I need and then to refocus to do the painting. Once I get it focused, it does help with my old eyes. Seeing these small details. Seems to be working. I think I'm working with a, a 2-time magnifying glass is what I went with. There we go. So that is already looking pretty good. Now I'm going to figure out which parts of her tail I want to be white and which parts I want to be orange. Let's go ahead and get the other lights on the scooter here. These I might come back with a little bit of yellow or something to put on them. Try to, well, I did not do a good job of evening those up, but there we go. That's not too bad. And you can see, maybe on camera, the top of the helmet is not perfectly colored right now. You can see some spots through it, but we'll let that dry and then come right back with another coat. Now this guy, I don't think I'm going to have any white on him, which is unfortunate. But we are going to fill in the lights on this as well. Need a little more paint. We're going to do something similar here. And I think I'm going to do, I've seen some different pictures and they look different in different places, but I am going to try to keep it somewhat consistent, varying the two characters, but then somewhat keeping their color seams consistent. His scooter looked almost the same color as the clothes he was wearing, and then he was wearing a blue helmet. And her scooter, I could not get any really good pictures of, but she was wearing a pink helmet, a dark pink, pinkish purple. So I'm using those as my basis for coming up with the color schemes. And then the way they did these models, they have some really good detail in the places where they have detail. But to make the Mini easier to print, if you notice, they just put like a little side compartment on the scooter to cover up the legs and all that, so you don't have to worry about that. Now, what I am doing today with this, I'm trying out these new paints, and I'm going to try some different techniques on some models, honestly, that they're not, it's not really needed to have all the color on it. It's just a silly little team-based game. I just thought it would be kind of neat. So this will let me try out my paints, try out a couple techniques, and then if I'm pleased with how it looks, I can continue with some of my bigger, more detailed minis. And so far it's doing pretty good. Now the white is, it's weird. At times it goes on really well, and then at other times it is kind of thick. And then of course my hands are not the steadiest. But just remember, you're doing this for yourself. to enjoy your games more and to help you share them with your friends and family so that they can enjoy them. And it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Because if you're being consistent, being smooth with your painting, then any painting you're doing is going to look way better than that plain plastic. So I'm going to take just a short break at the cat in, and then we'll get right back started. Okay, sorry about that. I did take like a minute break, and I really was wanting to try and do this with little to no edits so that we can get a good idea. Oop, too much paint on the side. But I'll cover that up later with paint, with darker color. But get a better idea of how much time it's taking, how much time I'm spending. Do it in real time just to get an idea of what it looks like for you if you are thinking about trying to get into some painting and you want to know about the time sink. Is the time that you're putting in worth the effort that you're going to be putting in and the results that you'll be getting? Now, I can tell you, the first time that you paint the miniatures, you're going to be very happy when they're done, and you're going to like the way they look, and then you're going to find all kinds of little mistakes and say, well, I wish I could have done this or gotten this to fill in better, or I don't like the way this looks. And that's fine. That's normal. You want to try to improve a little bit every time, but don't get caught up on so much on the mistakes, especially on your first couple times of painting. Focus on, look how much better that looks. See, I've already messed up a little bit right there, but it's not bad. I got a little bit too much paint. This brush is weird. It wants to curl at the tip, and I have washed it several times and tried to twist the tip and straighten it, and it's a little weird. Let's see if I can get in here. Here we go. Let's get this little triangle of the chin. I think what I'm going to do is come in over here. Yeah, that'll stay taped down. I need to find a better solution. I don't really want to buy a bunch of mini clamps just yet because, I mean, they are a little expensive, and I often, when I paint, will try to do multiples at a time. I don't want to have to buy a clamp for every mini, for several minis at a time. And then if I constantly having to swap them out, I'm going to be smearing the paint and stuff. Usually this works fine, but don't know why these are not wanting to stay stuck. But it's fine, we'll get through it. Now, since I did not paint the tail last time, I can see, I don't know if you can see on camera, but I can see some of the black primer coming through, so we'll definitely have to go back over that again. Now this is strange. This is supposed to be Shadows over Amsterdam, but the license plate, I swear it looks like it says SH instead of SA, even before I covered up the lettering with paint. Maybe it's Stockholm, maybe it's something else, who knows. Now, do I want to put any white on her hands? I don't think so. I think it's just going to be too tiny and too fiddlesome. If I can get the chin area looking good and then the chest and tail, that will be good enough. Alright, let that dry. Well, I probably do need to do just a touch. And I don't want to mess up these lights. I'm lightly going to touch the centers of them. Now, back to the bear. I'm going to do something similar. Just add a little more paint to the stuff that is white. Especially the top of the helmet, because that is very visible. So I'm just using the side of the brush. I really don't see how some of these people, I kind of envy them. They'll just do live broadcasts and they sit and they paint and they have such steady hands and they talk to their community and they do such great awesome results in like half the time I do. So if you are looking to get started, hopefully I can motivate you by showing you that anyone with a little time and patience can get some nice looking results. But if you want to get to be a good painter, there are some amazing painters out there, and let me tell you, it's mind-blowing to me how speedy and steady they are and to get those results. I will have to touch this light up, shape it up better when I paint around it. That's what I think I'll have to do. Figure out how I want those lights to look. I was hoping to have some angled eclipses, but this one is not going to be that way at all. Still getting used to these glasses, but so far it's working pretty well. And that went well. There we go. I guess this plate doesn't have to be perfectly colored in white, but it would look better. I know you could argue, oh, it's probably got all kinds of dirt and grime and stuff thrown up on it, but for the purposes of the Mini, for it really popping, I think it probably would be better if it was colored in white really well. There we go. Man, the back of that stripe needs another coat too. There we go. Now, do I try to do the trim around the ears? Good grief. That part should probably be white as well. don't know why I put the game back on the shelf. I meant to leave the box out here. So I may just run over and get it here in a second. I want to see. I think I may do the inside of the ears white as well. Can I? This bottle's almost too big for what I'm trying to do right here. So, see if I can hold it in a certain way. We're just going to have to connect that, the stripe and the stay down. And I just lost my steady hand there, and I smeared into the pink section. Unfortunate. Wash some of that paint off before it gets too thick and too stuck on. And I'm going to get the box. So you can see here, we've got the fox and we've got the bear, and he's got a blue and white helmet. So I'm going to do hers similar, but if you notice, everything of his is like beige. You got a greenish beige and white scooter, and very plain. And I did find, here's like a close-up of him, and over here there's her on her pink scooter, but she has a yellow helmet, so I didn't like that. And if I could do like red and do his blue and blue, and I don't know, but I was afraid the red might clash a little more with the orangish fur. So, yeah. And looked at a little bit of the artwork inside the manual and stuff. Just did that, and then I just picked out what I wanted and came up with a decision. And it might not be what you would have done, but that's what I'm doing. And I need to put just a tad more, just a dab, inside his license plate area. There we go. And see, I'm already falling into the trap of trying to get too much detail right now, trying to do too perfect of a job. And since I did not plan it out as well as I should have, I have not painted the inside of the ears yet, which means I'm going to have to come back and put another couple of coats on those. Now, one thing about the Fox Mini I like is it does have, well, that was unfortunate. The inside of the ear has like a little groove where you can catch it, the paint. And she has some good color variations where the bear seems to be almost, and see, look, I'm rubbing off some of the white primer on the rocks. That's unfortunate, because you know that they would be getting hit with light. That's very unfortunate. I don't know if these are just a little too rubbery, or if they've been setting for a couple days, or what. But since I've already touched these here, let's just do this. And then when I get ready to paint the stones, the cobblestones, I'll take this tape off, but maybe that will help. I'll do the same thing with the bear. Unfortunate, but these are some of the things you have to deal with unless you've got a bunch of sticky tack that you can put underneath them, or if you want to glue magnets to it and then put a magnet on the inside of the cap, you could do that. or if you have they actually have mini paints that are clamps. They're, I don't know, about half the size of this bottle, and the top you squeeze it and it has little clamps that just clamp onto the edge of the mini. And they'd be nice, but they are a little expensive when this is just left over and free. So, all right. So I think it is time to start getting some color on. Now most of her color is going to be small details. Probably do the scooter last. I think I'm going to give both of them just black goggles, so that'll make that a little bit easier. And of course, black tires on the scooter. And this guy, how are we going to do him? Because almost all of his fur looks the same color, and it looks almost the same color as his jacket. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to really lighten up his coat, his actual jacket, but his fur is like a gray brown. Let's see. So why don't we just try that? I'll just try mixing 1 drop of brown and 1 drop of gray just to see what it looks like on my wet palette. If I like it, then we'll use that. And if not, then I haven't wasted much. And the brown seemed to be a little bit larger of a drop. But yeah, that's not bad at all right there. That looks very similar to some of the drawings or some of the pictures in the manual. All right, let's just try that, and hopefully that'll be enough paint to get him done. Now he's wearing black glove, like riding gloves, in several of the pictures, but he does have like his fingers poking out the front. So let's just do that. There we go. Then we'll come right in here, start painting. But it's going to be tricky to get, but maybe we'll get in there. And if we accidentally paint some on the coat, we will cover it later when we paint the coat. So if you notice, what I did is I started with the inside small detail areas, and I'm going to, and if you go a little past their perimeter, that's fine. You'll paint over it later. And the inside perimeter had some of the lighter colors, like her chest. And what in the world? And so, you also have to think about your colors. That white will be easier to paint over later than coming back in and painting white over top of orange or something like that. So started with the white. He's got some hair sticking out from under his helmet there. If he's zooming around on his scooter, I don't see how his chin hair is staying so pointy. Another thing you might have noticed, I just did one little drop. These droppers are nice. They're really nice to getting the paint out. But I just did one drop out of each. Now each one, the consistency and the thickness of the paint based on the color or how much I shook it or whatever, they're just a little different. And so they're going to drop just a little different. But I did not use much paint at all. And this is going to be plenty to do several coats of the bear fur. There we go. And unfortunately, that's about all of him that you can see. The rest of him is covered up by his coat and by his scooter. So now I got to figure out what color I'm going to do his chest, which will be like, it's not his trench coat, it's open. I may do it black like his pants. You can see just a little bit of his pants right there. See if I can get this little. Yeah, that looks better. There we go. We'll leave his goggles and his nose to be black. We're going to let that dry. We're going to see what colors we can get on our fox here. Where do I want to go next with her? Possibly her blue jeans. Now in that picture she was wearing light blue colored blue jeans. So let's just do that. There's not very much showing, but it is enough that it'll give just a nice little break in the color. I think it'll be a nice little splash of color too, if we can get it to look good. So right here, it's strange. On one side, it almost looks like she's wearing a belt, but I do not see that kind of detail on the other side. So I wonder if that was supposed to have been fur coming out from under her shirt, between her shirt and her jacket. So I think I am going to paint that as though it is fur, which means I'm going to have to come back and paint over some of that blue. And this blue is a very light blue. It is very thin, so it's definitely going to take a couple of coats. And just like that, we'll let that dry, and we'll go right back to the bear, picking up some of that gray brown. Let me show you what I'm doing. I'm just getting to the edge of the paint where I can find a nice spot where it's still thin. And I'm just kind of twisting my brush in it, loading up all sides of the brush. And here we go. I want to stick the pointiest part of the brush up into the helmet and then just slide the side of the brush down. There we go. Yeah. Second coat is already looking better. Now, let's see if I can get this on camera a little bit. His goggles are not square, they're like rounded. And between the goggles and his tuft of hair and his helmet, there is, let me see if I can get this to focus. Let me change the focus here. There you go. Between that tuft of hair and his goggles, I was able to get the brush in there and paint like his forehead. So that's not bad. I'm surprised that I was able to actually get that done, to be truthful. And as it feels like you're losing paint, just kind of twist the brush and you should have more paint on the other parts of the brush. If you rolled the brush in the paint like I did. There we go. And I'm not going to worry about that around the back too much. I'll get a little bit on the very tip of the brush, and here we go. I'm already starting to get it on the coat, and I know I'll have to paint over it, so we're not going to worry about that. We're going to call the back of his neck done. And after this dries, we will look and see how his face and tail are looking. Now that this is dried here, I can see a little bit of the black primer coming through. So we want to make sure we just cover that up. Oops. I got in a hurry and I moved the Mini too much in relation to what I could see with my goggles, and I smacked the scooter a little bit. But I should be able to get as much of the paint off as I can and just kind of twist the brush in the paper towel, get some of that paint off. Now I'm going to just dip it in the water just to get the tip of the brush wet. And I should be able to paint off some of that paint before it dries really well. And it's not wanting to come off. Yep, it was thin enough, it's already starting to dry. Got a little bit of it off using a little bit of force. So we will definitely have to paint over that. But after 2 coats, that looks much better. Much better. And this may not be the best, most time-effective way of painting. Like I said, I am not a professional. I've never been paid for any of my paintings. I'm not planning on trying to make that a source of revenue because too old, hands too shaky, eyes too bad. I do enjoy painting my miniatures from time to time, but I cannot imagine if I had to do this constantly and consistently. There we go. Just that second coat on those pants looks so much better. Right. Let's go back to the bear. And let's get our black. I'm going to shake this up really well. Now we will be coming back to the black later, but he does have some black pants, and I'm going to do his undershirt underneath black. So let's go ahead and get one thin coat on there. There we go. He's also got a satchel he's wearing over his shoulder. And so anywhere where I can see a part of the strap or anything like that, we'll make that black too. And that will stand out against the brown fur and the tan trench coat. So I don't need to do a lot of black right now because we will be doing black wheels, black exhaust, muffler exhaust, all that stuff later. Black goggles. I can see this is already going to cause me fiddly concerns and such trying to get this the way I want it. Now, since I've already got his face and since I'm already pleased with how it looks, I'm going to come in here and gently add some color to the goggles and the nose. Because I do not plan on, unless I really smear the black, I don't plan on coming back in here. Let me get a little bit of this paint off the brush. Got a little bit too much to get down in that last little bit there. Good enough. I may have to get my smaller brush to do what I'm wanting to do because I see a couple of little spots. Now, one thing I will advise when you're getting started, use the biggest brush that you can to start off with and then go back because look how small the tip is on that. See if I can get this up under that helmet, between the helmet and the goggles without messing up my painting. Oh yeah, that'll probably be enough. Now the black. It looks like it has one. Oh, that's annoying. It has one little brush strand that is longer than the rest. That's so annoying. Yeah, that's probably good enough for what I want to do right now. Because like I said, I will have to come back later and do black on other parts, but I want to do that later. So now hers goggles look like almost like a visor that goes all the way across, which will make this much easier. So we will just pretend that it is a visor that is fixed to the helmet, and that will make this much easier to just paint straight across. And what I may do after this dries is come back in with some of that light blue and just put a little highlight in one of the corners or something. And then we will do the tip of the nose. As long as we don't mess up the underneath. I gotta say that one bristle is really annoying. Cannot see it on camera, but my goodness, it comes through on the magnifiers really well. Let's see if I got it that time. Nope, it's still there. Now we can get into some color. So what are we going to do? Let's see. All right, let's go ahead and get his jacket knocked out of the way. And we need a light tan. So what I'm thinking, instead of the fur and the gray, which I'm hoping we're done with, so we can set those aside, I'm going to go with the rust color, which is a reddish light brown, and I'll just add a drop of white. And hopefully that'll get me that khaki trench coat color that I want. Let's see how this looks. Trying to get everything moved and keep it on camera just to show you what I'm thinking and doing, because I'm just trying stuff out with you. That is almost a skin tone. That's almost a flesh tone. And if you don't like the color, you can always just add a tiny bit more brown. But we're going to go ahead and paint this on to see how this looks. And if we need to, we can come back with the second coat and darken it up. But right now, I'm kind of liking it. Now this trench coat has a high collar, so we're going to get right into the edge there, right up next to the fur. And if it gently touches in with the fur, it should be okay, as long as it's not too much. And if you get too much, then spread it out. Now there's a little bit of a rough spot on the Mini right there, so that'll just have to stay, but that doesn't look too bad so far. But now, after all that hard work on the small detail stuff, is when we will get to come in here with lots of color. And we should start to see quick change. Now I could just paint over that strap, but I'm going to try to just avoid it, and the satchel, because I am planning on painting those black. So if I get a little bit on there, it's not that big of a deal, but I don't want to saturate it in brown and then come back over it with black. It would be fine. It would give it a nice weird leathery look. But I wanted to go with the all black on that. Having trouble right here with the trench coat over his tail. I don't want to drip down too far. I want to try and avoid getting any paint on the tail if I can help it, but I also need to get up in there. So try to get another point. Try to get paint only on the tip there, and we're going to try to get that up in there, up underneath. Oh, there we go. Oops. Now I've smeared some paint on his tail, so I will have to go back and repaint that. So hopefully, what I'm hoping is, unless somebody gets goggles like me and looks at this angle, the tail is not connected to on the miniature, the tail is not connected to the trench coat. So there's like a little gap there, and it goes all the way back to the base of the Mini. So unless you get the brush all the way back in there to paint that gap, then you're going to see black space, which is unfortunate. But I did get a little bit of trench coat brown on his gray brown tail, so we'll have to go back and touch that up later. But let's finish off the trench coat here. First coat. This up here is already starting to dry pretty well, so I can just come over here and add a little more paint. Smooth it around, come down this arm. And just remember, you don't have to do like me at all. In fact, I would probably advise you not to. But especially when it comes to painting, when you're first getting started, if you're getting frustrated and cramped, you've got the wet palette, just walk away, take a break. Take a 10-minute break, come back, and let that paint dry. Wash your brush and just let it set, and just walk away for a while. If you're not having fun and enjoying the results, then you'll never get them done. And I promise you, if you can stick through it, you'll always be happy with the results at the end, even if they are not professional quality, because you did it. And like I say, steady, consistent color is going to look better than just plain plastic. There we go. Now this guy is looking more and more like your typical noir spy detective. He has the brown trench coat going, and it is flapping in the wind. Can I get the inside of that sleeve, please? It is so funny because most mini models, whether you're playing tabletop war games or just tabletop board games, most of them do not have this much open space in them in the middle. They might have some space between their legs like they're doing a stance, or they might be holding a sword or a shield beside their body, and it might have a little space on it. But I have never seen a miniature this small for just a regular family style tabletop game with this much air in the middle, this much space. I mean, it makes it for a cool looking mini, but it does increase the difficulty for painting. Now, see if I can get the edge of the trench coat tail there. There we go. Definitely will have to add another coat or two on that. Come over here on this one. I'm sorry I'm not talking all the time. I'm sure you would get tired of listening to me. And this video probably won't do well, but I'm not worried about that. I was wanting to put some content out there for new people learning to paint, to encourage them and encourage myself. That is done with the first coat. Now, if you do a good job, take your time with the first coat. Try to get a nice thin layer everywhere. Every coat after that goes much quicker. Think about painting a wall on your house if you've ever painted. Now, we got our fox here. Let's do some orange. And I happen to have, now in the artwork, she has sun hitting her a lot, so some of her fur is yellowish, but the darker side is orange. And it is an orange. And then she has blonde hair. But of course she's got a helmet on. She doesn't have any visible hair on the model. So we're just going to go straight up. This is orange, just orange. Micro mark orange. We're going to see what that looks like on the mini. I'm going to start over here so that hopefully I don't get too much orange on the blue jeans that I just painted. Ooh, now I like this. Part of it is because of the black primer undercoat, okay? But it has a burnt orange look to it. It's not a screaming orange. And I will warn you, in most paints, orange is one of the harder colors to paint. It will take 3, 4, 5 coats. So just be warned. Be ready. Go ahead and tell yourself. Thin coats, get into the corners, and then thin it out as I go. And just know I'm gonna have to come back and do some more. Now the cool thing is, with this model, since it is an animal's fur, if you have some black showing through here and there, it won't matter. It will almost look like highlights that you've done. Now I want to try later to use my new paints and make a wash and show you what that would be like, to see how it will work before I get into some of my other models, my other minis. But it doesn't have to be perfect, remember. You're doing this for yourself to better enjoy your games. And if someone is not impressed with the effort you put in and the job that you did, then those are probably not the kind of people you would be wanting to sit around your dining table and playing games with you. So don't worry about it. Now I want to show you. See how much of the black primer is wanting to come through. That is just one of the things with like oranges and yellows. They tend to do that. So just be warned. Oh, look at this. Now we're getting some color on the model, and it is... oh, it's looking so good. It's so fun to see it come together like this. Now you could even add some white to the tips of the ear, or you could come back in and put some black or white highlight fur here and there. There are some little grooves and designs on these ears. Just remember that everything you decide to do like that on a small model like this is just going to make it a little more difficult. At the end, the results will be amazing. The process to get there may not be as fun. So you have to weigh that in consideration. The time and effort versus the final results and enjoyment. I am not a professional again, so I would much rather have a well-painted miniature that looks 90% and have all of my miniatures painted, and only have one or two looking 100% and being frustrated and not finishing the others, and then having to come back at a much later date, which I have done. I have done that. First getting started, taking on too big of a project, too many at a time, and I finished a set, and then we were playing Fortune and Glory, so I only had 4 or 6 of the heroes painted, so not everybody got to play with a painted mini their first game, because they chose somebody that was not painted. I think I'm going to have to switch brushes for a little bit. Get my fine tip back out with that wild bristle. Let's see how this does. Right across the bridge of the nose. So between the black of the goggles and the black of the nose, I'm going to come in here, and we want to try and keep if the orange kind of mixes in with the black there, I think it's so small it's not going to matter, but I want to try and keep it out of the white of the under fur. I want to keep that nice and I just did it. I jabbed a little too hard, bent the brush, and it went over into the white. Of course, I had to speak, right? I had to say it. But I think it's small enough. I may be able to touch it up. Now this area I am struggling with. So I am trying to dab on a little extra paint, and then as soon as it feels like it's starting to dry, dabbing on a little more. Because my hands are already shaking. I don't know if I'm going to want to come back and risk messing this up. I would rather it not be as well coated as the more visible stuff than to take a chance of messing up some of the stuff I've already done. There we go. That will just have to give the illusion that the fur up under there is also colored. All right. Still trying to figure out these goggles. When I get them right, they work amazing. When I don't, they can be frustrating. There we go. Now if a little bit of orange gets in here into the ear on the white, as long as it's on the edge, that will actually be fine because it will blend and it will break up that perfect harsh line and it will look a little more natural fur. But when you get it onto the white of the helmet, it's not as nice because two separate pieces, one is hard, one is soft. Here we go. Now if you notice, as it's drying, it's almost looking brown, but that is looking good. I think a couple more coats, that's gonna look good. Now I may try to do the very tip of the nose, but I'm not going to go back up into the helmet area. I'm going to call that done. Just too risky to mess up. And we will touch her fingers here that are sticking out from under her gloves as well. Yep, definitely going to have to come back with some more. And that paint, if you notice, look how thin it is. I used up almost the entire little drop. It's just not much comes out, and it does not go to coating great. Loaded up my brush with the tan. We're going to come right back in here, and yep, there's a few spots where after it dried you can see some of the underneath black. this is looking good now. And if I can get my wash to work, this is going to look amazing when it's done, because we will have some blackish gray paint that will get down in some of these crevices. A little more paint. Here we go. And one cool thing, if you're struggling getting underneath the coat and such, you don't have to worry about it being perfect, because that will look like dirt and shadows and stuff. Focus on the large visible parts, and then work the paint toward the less visible spots, and just try to get as much as you can, but don't worry about it being perfect. And I did get a little bit more brown on the bottom of that satchel than I wanted, but I think it will be fine in the end. So there we go. Let's get underneath the collar, bring that up, underneath the collar. Now let's get the top of the collar, just barely push down on it. Little extra paint on top of the arm. We want to make sure that is well covered, because that is very visible. It's also where the sunlight would be hitting as he's driving around the streets. Oh, there we go. And while I have him in my hand, I'm going to go back. Yep, it's still plenty wet. Good grief, I got way too much paint. Went back to the gray brown so I can touch up the top of his tail here. Now that paint, that tan paint, will mix in with this, and it's going to discolor the brown tail. So you may have to spread it all around and really thin it out, and then come in with another coat just to get back to that very distinct difference in browns. But there we go. I'm liking that. And I never did paint his ears. Why didn't you guys tell me? Shame on you. Sitting there laughing at me, mocking me as I'm painting, and not telling me to paint his ears. Hopefully you didn't call me too nasty of names this Easter. And I pray you are all safe and healthy and happy and celebrating our Lord's resurrection with your family and your friends and your church, and enjoying the beautiful weather that, at least around here, we have. But shame on you for not telling me I missed his ears. Here we go. There we go. I got to remember to come back and touch those ears up. And that should be enough time on the orange. And I'm sitting here looking on my timer. It's been going for 54 minutes, so that gives you an idea. I've got the bulk of the small detail stuff, I think, done. But that gives you an idea of how much time of an investment painting miniatures can be, so that you can decide if it's something that you are willing to invest that time into. There we go. Try to get a little more light right on it. There we go. Just with 2 coats, it's already starting to look orange. But we'll definitely let that dry well, very well, and look at it. But I'm thinking I'm going to do at least another coat, maybe 2. I'll have to check after each coat. Because I'm really liking the way it's looking. And of course, for those of you who are watching, and if you have put up with me this long, well, God bless you, but you could, if you like, just go into the settings and do it on like 2 times speed. And you'd still get an idea of what it's like. I'm afraid I might have, I'll tell you what, I'll use this on the tail. I may have a little bit too much paint on there for what I'm wanting to do on the nose, bridge of the nose there. So let's just go ahead and rub off some of this paint onto the bushy tail part. And I'm already seeing loads less black primer on the tail and on the ears. So remember, multiple thin coats is not really going to take any more time than one thick, nasty coat that you're trying to spread out evenly. Stack the thin coats, because the subsequent coats will go on much quicker and easier anyway. There we go, that's looking nice. Let me see if I can get the bridge of her nose. There we go. Gotta say, she's looking cool. Looking pretty cool. Really liking that. And look, that time it did not use up all. It took less paint to cover the same amount of space, and then took way less time. So I think Agent Bear is ready for some real coloring. Now, like I said, his scooter in the picture is it's almost the same color as her jacket. It's like an olive. And I don't like that because you have the light brown fur and the light brown coat and the light green. So I'm going to make his helmet and scooter match. So we're coming in with the blue. This is just flat blue. Now we should start really seeing it come together. I'm going to go ahead and put 2 drops of that on the palette because it's going to be so much area to paint, and this being the first coat especially. So again, I'm just getting my brush into the edge of the paint if I can and twisting it, rolling it. And now I want to stay away from his pants and his sleeve, and I'm just going to start painting the scooter blue. Now's the time I probably should get out a larger brush. If I had a nice one that was larger that I felt comfortable painting with, this would be the time you'd want to do that. Use the largest brush that you can. There we go. Go around that headlamp where I got a little generous with the paint. Nice. Now this darker blue is painting a little bit thicker, covering a little easier than the first coat of the light blue, but it's still going to require at least 2 coats. So go ahead and tell yourself, this is not the final look. I will need to paint it again because you will find spots where it's not wanting to cover, and you're going to be asking yourself why. Why does it not look as good as the other spots? All right. I'm even going to paint the frame of the license plate blue, and then we'll do the trim black later. And I will have to try to remember to paint these brake lights. Let's get those red. Yeah. Oops, just got a little bit of blue. My bristles split and some of them jumped up on top of the license plate. So I got a little bit of blue paint on the white, but I should be able to cover that up with the black when I do the trim. go. You have to have some sort of finished look in your mind to be working toward, and realize that there's also going to be in between steps that you're also going to have to take an account of and aim for, so that you are not discouraged and you're not overly optimistic for speedy results. Patience. But even that is looking awesome. Look at that. All right, let's get the top. I think, let's see. I'll do the top of the lamp for sure. Come around by. Quit separating, you stinking bristles. There we go. Did I get all up underneath? Not quite. Got a little spot right there. And the rest of that I think will be black. It'll be... Ooh, except for that. Do I want to risk that? I think I have to. Okay. Probably should have painted this before I painted his trench coat, but that's okay. I will know for when I paint the fox. So this is like the little lap cover that they decided to go with on the models, just to make the models a little bit easier probably to 3D print. Which is understandable. Why can I not get the angle of the brush and the angle of my visor the way I want to do this? It is very tricky. Here we go. Much better. I do see one little drop of blue on his trench coat, which I figured I would do once I saw that where I was painting. But I will be able to cover that up. As soon as I finish his helmet, the first coat on his helmet, I will swap colors and paint over that blue on his trench coat. And somewhere like this is where you want to try and be careful. Because remember, this is a hard helmet. It has very distinct lines. It's not like the fur. Where the fur, if you mix the colors and stuff, that's fine. It's absolutely fine. That's more natural. You don't want harsh, perfect corners and color separations. You want the fur to flow, but you want to try and have your steady hand right now. I'm going to twist off some of the paint onto my wet palette and try to get more paint on just the tip of the brush so that I can get up under his ear and right here in this corner. Still got more paint on there than I want it, so let me just brush some of that off over here. Now see if I can get up under the ear. It's not too bad. the ears are bending down, but they have a little air under them, which is a little gap, which is kind of annoying because it will show when you smack it with that other color, which I did right there. Oops. I am just messing up all kinds of stuff now. My hand shook a little bit and I had a little bit too much paint and I just got all kinds of blue on the white, trying not to get it on his ear. So we got to fix that right away before that paint gets too... Ooh, don't want to get paint on my shirt if I can help it. Let's see. Before that paint gets too dry and set. There we go. Then start doing some of the touch-ups. I want to go ahead and touch it up now before I forget, because if I keep smacking it and add more and more of the wrong color, it'll be harder to cover. So cover it now. Mix it around, and then if you have to cover it again, you have to cover it again. All right. Here we go. I am really liking the way that's looking. I can see that I need to paint a tiny bit more. On the edge of this light. A tiny bit more. I forgot this is where I accidentally went wild with the white earlier, so I have to cover that up. There we go. I am really liking the way this is looking. Hour and 13 minutes in, roughly. So, this purple is a little too purple for what I was wanting, and to match with what the images are. So, let's try one drop and one drop of white. We just want to lighten that up a little bit. We don't want it super pink, we don't want it super purple. We want it in between. Look at that. Now that is not perfect. But I like that. So on the box, her scooter's just a little more pink than that. So what do I do? I'm afraid when I add this red, it's going to be so red. It's going to be too pink, but we'll see. If it doesn't work, we just start over. One little drop. Now I could have just went white and red and just mixed it until I got the color I wanted, but oh, look at that. You got this. Oh, I like that. I like that. You got this rosy. I don't know if it's showing up well on the camera, but look at that. Oh, I like that. Now, of course, my brush has a little bit too much paint on it right now. So let's find a large area and get to painting. Although I probably, and I keep forgetting I got to get that fur. Wow. See, I keep finding stuff I'm forgetting. Sitting here, painting painting as I go, kind of winging it and talking. I'm getting distracted and I am making all sorts of mistakes. But at least that time I painted on something that has not been painted yet, so it's not that bad. Her lap cover is going to be hard to paint. She is small and thin and she is hunched over her bike more. So let's get in there. As long as I don't hit the white of her shirt, I think I'll be happy. The rest of it I can deal with, I can fix at a later time. It's that white shirt I don't want to mess up. Okay. Let's get some of that paint off. There we go. This time I did not let it dry too much first. Now that spot is going to be nearly impossible to get the paint off of. It is where her jacket cuff meets the lap cover in the corner. That is ridiculous. I did not realize these miniatures were going to be so difficult. Alright, let's get a lot of this paint off her hand. That's too much. I should be just using it to paint the scooter and stuff, but I'm trying to keep this brush as clean as possible. And come on. There we go. All right. That is annoying. That one spot, the little lap cover. Now her scooter I'm going to do different. Her little, I don't know if it's like a helmet storage or just a fender well. I'm going to paint it the same color as her scooter instead of painting it white. Paint hers a little different. Add a little variety. Mix it up. But I am really liking this color. I think once I get a few coats of it on there, it's going to look really good. Now remember, the first coat, I'm going a little thick with the paint, moving it around, trying to go from higher elevations to lower and higher model to lower, and just pushing it around. Because if you start in the lower spots with that thick paint, it's going to goop, it's going to pool. So you want to work it around and down. I'm hoping that I smeared enough paint down a little thicker than normal on the lap cover that I do not have to do that again, because that is, oops, I just painted the headlight a little bit. It's frustrating and nerve-wracking. And it's hidden enough that it does not have to be perfectly painted and covered. Started to get more paint, but I think I want to hold off till I get up under the license plate there and get down to the trim and the mud guard. There we go. I thought about leaving this all black, but I'm going to add a little more color to it and come right through here. There we are. Nice. That's looking good. It's looking really good. I think I'm going to have to swap brushes. I don't trust myself. I have seen recently, they've been getting more popular, are paint markers. The only problem with those is I don't know if you could get in the small detail areas like this. Now, if you're not worried about getting the small details like this, like if you want to do the helmet all in one color, right? You start on the inside, you do her jacket and her fur, and then you come out and work out, then I think those paint markers might be pretty cool to use and try. But I've already got all this equipment, and I've been painting for a while, trying to get better, so let's just keep at it, right? That time, that was not my fault. We got a stray bristle, and that one lone bristle went and touched the white. That is so annoying. Now, if you run out of the paint, okay, and you need to mix more, that's one reason why I did it the way I did it. 1 drop purple, 1 drop white, 1 drop pink. Now, your drops may not be exactly the same amount drop each time, but if you mix it right on top of the old paint, it will be close enough. Because I have plenty of paint to do the first coat, so if you come in with the second coat on top of the first, and the paint colors are not perfect, they will blend and mix enough that you will not tell the difference when they're dry. It will look like the same color. So don't worry about that. I thought this brush was going to be better, but I think I'm going to have to get some nail clippers out. I'm not going to be able to use that. I'm going to have to get nail clippers out and really cut that one stinking bristle. But until I do, I can't use it. So let's get the other brush. And just use less paint. Use the very tip of the brush and get into the corner of that helmet pattern. And this weird pink color I made is actually coating pretty well. Once I get it pushed around and spread out, it's covering pretty decently. It's not bad at all. But now I got to go back and fix another mistake that you people did not tell me about. Good grief, I can't believe you. So we're going to get that going, and then we'll finish a third coat of the rest of the fur. But she has a little bit of fur sticking out right here from under her shirt, between her under her shirt and under her jacket. Right here. So between her layers, she's got just a little bit. Now that bit might be part of her shirt, but there is no way don't think I'm going to be able to go back in and put just a little white ring between the olive green and the orange. I just don't think it's at my skill level. Now my brush is seeming to be too wet now. So I'm going to scrape that paint off and then go right back in to where this paint is so wet and move it around. There we go. I definitely got to come in there with a few more coats to get that fur. I'm going to spread this paint out so I can get it much thinner on the brush, not let the brush feel quite so damp. And I did get a little more orange inside the ear than I wanted, but I'm not worried about it. It still looks really good. I'm not perfect. My painting's not going to be perfect, right? It's all about being better than it was. And it is definitely that. Here we go. And I'm not touching her nose anymore. Like I said when I did that earlier, if I can get those 2 coats on there, I'm going to call it done on that. Now I'm going to go back. It should have been enough time for that to dry most of the way that I can come right back in here and put just a little thin coat right on top of that. And then we're going to let that dry really well before we do any more on that middle back section. A little bit of the fingers on the handlebars. Yep. Alright, let's let that dry. And I really hope I'm not messing up my brushes. I know I'm not the example to watch, but let's take a quick, short water break. All right. Now, look how good this guy is looking. Look at that. And this one doesn't really need a lot more work. The blue did really well covering. I'm painting his just a little different than hers. even the part where your feet would rest, there's usually like a rubbery grip. His I'm leaving black, or I'm going to paint black. Hers I did pink like her scooter. And then, of course, the fender well, I did his in white and left hers the same as her scooter. So just adding a little variety, just to mix them up a little bit. It's just mind-boggling to me, because I remember in art class in high school, we used to sit and watch Bob Ross all the time while we did our stuff. We would do different stuff. And even now that I'm grown, I've watched Bob Ross. Sometimes I'll put him on just to listen and relax while I do something. And he can do a full portrait, beginning to end, in like 30 minutes. And here I am, hour and 30 minutes in. And we're getting there, but we're not there yet. Not there yet. It's just the difference with working on a large canvas with large brushes with large amounts of talent, and working with minis on a mini scale with mini brushes and many levels of talent, or at least many years of experience versus few. Right? But the only person I am trying to compete with is myself, which can sometimes be a bad thing, because I do sometimes get frustrated because I know what I'm trying to do, I know what I'm wanting to do, and sometimes my hand and eyes don't want to do it, and I know that I could have done better, it just will not let me. I'm going to leave that wheel mud flap guard, I'm going to leave it black too. There we go. Now let's see if I can get a little bit more on the helmet. Need to get my light in closer. There we go. I moved it to get my water and I forgot to move it back. And here's another little trick, a little tip. Okay, so that first coat, if you can get it pretty good and get it down in the corners, you don't have to with the rest of the coats. You just push the paint toward it and it will look like a natural shadow. You don't have to worry about it being perfect. Okay? Don't have to worry about it being perfect. So then when you come back with later coats, you don't have to get as close to your other colors. And that time I messed up. I'm sitting there talking, a big game. What do? Mess up. Oh, excuse me, my nose. There we go. Stop rolling around there, Mr. Bear. Now. Yeah, that's not too bad. And because of my wet palette, the bear fur color is still plenty wet, so I'll just cover that up a little bit. There we go. Now, while we have him here in my hand, and I'm letting her, I tell you what, I will switch to her. I want to put a little bit more orange fur color on that one spot. Now this paint is so thin it is wanting to dry out, and it's on a little bit of an elevated area of my parchment paper. There we go. Now we'll let that dry. And then we'll come right back to him, because that blue, I think, is good enough. His goggles are not perfect, but they don't look too bad. He's not looking too bad. Okay, so now we can do a lot of painting with him. So coming in with my black, I got a little bit of black left on my palette, but I'm going to go ahead and drop another drop so that hopefully I don't have to stop to get more paint. All right. This will just make it a little bit easier. In the pictures, they were wearing gloves with their fingers sticking out of the ends. And one or both of them had on like brown leather gloves. I'm going with black. It will pop a little better, and with it being the same color as the handlebars and instrument panel, it will just make it so much easier on me. It's already hard enough getting down in those little cracks there. I cannot find, I'm sorry, I'm going to be off camera for a moment. I'm trying to find a good angle to get down right in here. And that is annoying me. See if I can. Now, I don't recommend doing this at home, but I think I bit the tip of that one long bristle off. Because I need to get right in front of the handlebars there. There's a big spot of blue I missed, and you can see the primer. The white primer. And it is a drastic difference between the blue and the black. You can see that white. If I can get just a tad more paint on there. And of course the brush bent and buckled, and it Touched his arm. Oh, I'm afraid if I keep on, I'm going to make more of a mess. But can you see? We are talking about below this hand. So you can't even see it on camera there. I could barely get to it and see it with my goggles. So I think if I cover up that blue paint, let me get a different brush. If I cover up that blue paint on that sleeve, which is not much, it's not much at all, then I think that's going to be good. As long as I quit hitting everything else. There we go. And we're going to come in here. Now some of this up under the scooter, I don't know if it's supposed to be like a cloud of dust and dirt or what, but it's not connected to the scooter wheels and it is not connected to the cobblestones, and so it does look just a little weird. So I would say, just maybe pretend that's like dirt and dust, and you could do it a gray brown color, or if you want, you could just continue with the cobblestone color. Not sure. Got the two exhaust pipes coming out the back. What kind of little scooter is this? It's got dual exhaust. I think all the little Vespas I've ever seen are single exhaust. So we'll paint that black up in there. There we go. That is looking pretty good. Now comes the real tricky part. So I'm going to quit rolling. If my glasses will stay up, I'm going to get just a little bit of paint on the edge of this brush. Let's see if my idea will work. Would you look at that? And it doesn't have to be perfect because it could be somewhat faded. Look at that. Just by rubbing the side of the brush with it, we'll get the elevated parts of the letters. Nice! So I'll get just a little more paint by rubbing the side of the brush against the side of the other brush. And then I'll just come in here and do that again. Amazing! That looks so good. Alright, let's leave that brush right there so I can remember to do that again. And then we'll come in here. And the seat. The seat he's sitting on is going to be a black leather. Now this kind of blends and melds in with his pants, so just feel free to go right up in there. And there we go. Just a little bit more on this side. And another thing that's good with the black is very easy to cover with one coat. And it's very hard to paint over if you mess up. So that's one reason why I'm just gently trying to push the paint toward where I want it to go and letting it go so it can get down in those creases by itself. Because a lot of times, if you do it well, you got all those shadows and stuff anyway. That is all you will need, is that one coat with the black, with the most blacks I've seen. Now if you're doing a top surface area, then yeah, go ahead and put 2 coats. But when you're getting down in these cracks like this, if you can push a little bit of paint down in there of black, that's enough, and you will be done. Same thing on this side. Tiniest bit of paint. Get down in this little crack right there. There we go. All right. It's looking good, looking good. Tape is still not wanting to hold. It's a shame. Tiny bit of black. Don't need much. Get up under the satchel. There we go. Get up under this side. Oh, and that paint is wanting to run and drip. So we're going to try to connect that right there so it doesn't look as jagged and uneven. It looks more continuous. There we go. There we go. Now there is a little tiny bit of maybe I can put the tiniest bit of paint there. There's a tiny bit of shoulder strap right there. There we go. Yeah, I need to let my brushes dry a little better. They are wanting to drip now. That is my fault. These paints are already so thin. I'm used to painting with my other acrylics, and they are much thicker, and you have to dilute them some, thin them out. These do really well. Don't have to do that as much. But I really like the way it's looking. And I think he is pretty much done. because everything is looking so well covered, and the blue on the scooter, even with just 2 coats, covered well. Put a little bit more here on this wheel. Really want it to be really black. There we go. Okay. Finishing touches on him. I think what I'm going to do, and I don't have any red out, so I'll get the tiniest drop of red I can on the side of my palette. That was probably like a half drop. It wasn't even very much at all. Let's see if I can put just a little bit of red. There we go. If it'll go where I want it to. And the bristles keep bending on me. I really need to get a nice fine point brush and then know how to better take care of them so that they keep their point better. Let's see, is this brush? Yeah, it's clean and dry, so let's just get a tiny bit of that blue. There we go. Excellent. And I think I may call that on him until we do the wash and the cobblestones. I'll do both of their cobblestones at the same time. Let's see, we're running at close to 2 hours now, which I knew was going to happen. There was no way around it. But that gives you a good idea of how much time it takes to paint these miniatures. It is a time sink. It is an investment. But you also have to consider it is an investment in enjoyable replayability of your games and over time getting more out of your game, so more enjoyment per dollar spent. Especially if you're like me, not only does it look a lot better, but I enjoy the painting. I don't enjoy getting it all started and sitting down and trying to get everything ready and planned out and get all my supplies ready. And then I start putting the paint on the mini and I just see how quickly it starts to change. I get excited. And I enjoy the painting process then. It can be messy. And it can be frustrating and nerve-wracking at times, but it is just so rewarding, so enjoyable. And again, hers, I'm going to leave the seat smaller. And it's not going to go all the way down into the corner. There we go. And let's see. Maybe I just highlight the tip of her nose again. Okay. I need to fix her headlight too. I got too much. I got some pink on the headlight of the headlamp, on the glass part of the headlamp. Here we go. Already starting to cover up some of those uglier looking areas on the model. You can tell when I'm getting down in the small bits and I get quiet. I'm really trying to focus. So any of you who are sticking with this, you are better than I am. I would probably be skipping forward and watching it at increased speed. And I'm not going to do this with all my painting videos, but I noticed when editing my Horrified, I jumped too much. I would turn off the camera, turn on some music, and I would just start painting, and I would get too much done and be like, oh no, I didn't show what I was doing and thinking. And putting music on will help it go. That is for sure. Let's see, what color is this? Seems pretty well clean, so, and dry. What about this one? Yep. And that one still has quite a bit of black in there. I'm just gently pulling it out and twisting it, putting just a little bit of pressure to try and wash away some of that paint, water, whatever is on there. All right. And I'm hoping this will be the last coat I need to do with the pink. It seems to be covering really well now. Yeah, that's looking really good. Okay, load the brush up with a little more paint so I can start at the top and push it down into the edge. Looks like I might have got a tiny drop of pink on her pants. I'm not going to worry about it. Don't know if anyone else will see it. Unless they watch this video and then they come over and look for it and go, ha ha, look what I see. All right. So I think what I'm going to do here in just a minute is take a break, which means I'll stop recording. Won't be a stop for you, because I will edit it together, but I'm going to let this dry. I want to make sure I don't do any painting this time off camera. I'm going to do everything on camera. And I know it's probably not as exciting, it's more boring that way, but just to show the time that I'm putting in, give you my thoughts of what is going on. But why let you sit and watch paint dry? Because I'm not going to. I am going to take a break. I'm going to go for a walk outside in the nice beautiful sun. I'm going to get me some water, stretch my legs, fresh air, and then come back to it and finish up some of this smaller detail stuff. I may have to put another thin coat of pink around the license plate. We'll see. That is looking good. I do need a little bit more paint right there. Dab, dab. Okay. All right. Now, I do have to say, it's unfortunate because it's right up top and right up front, but her helmet is probably my least favorite part of her painting so far. She's got too many jagged edges. It's not nice and smooth. And that is my painting, that is not the model. So I'm complaining about my lack of steady hands there. Ooh, the wind's picking up. I can hear the house creaking. There we go. See how that's looking. And of course, I got to keep reminding myself, I'm using my goggles, so when I'm looking in, I'm really seeing more mistakes than you would on camera or possibly in person. So let's see. A little more orange. Maybe another coat of pink. I'm not sure. But I am going to try and fix that headlamp while I'm thinking about it. Still got a little bit of white sitting here. Need a little bit more than that because that white is going to be thin, and even covering the light pink, it's going to take a little more paint than what you would think. But I want that headlamp to look a little more round than square. So frustrating. And go from one extreme to the other. Okay. Gotta get that brush to dry a little better. Oop. I finally ran out of orange. There's a tiny bit there, and it is mostly dry, just scraping paper. So one tiny drop of orange. I am definitely not a speed painter. I see some of these people, they'll do an entire army of tabletop wargaming in a day. I don't get it. I don't have the skill or the patience. Okay, girl, can I get the bridge of your nose, of your face? Oh, yeah. Here we go. Fingertips. Yep. Thumb there, fingers here. Thumb there, okay. A little bit of handlebar there I missed, not bad. All right. Should have probably started with this area so I could come back and get it again at the end, but it is what it is. Okay. Looking good. That is looking great. Probably should have left that brush and used a different one, but oh well. I've washed it now. There we go. Nice, nice. Okay. Now he is pretty much done. She is pretty much done. Still can't decide if I want to do another little coat of the pink. I may, But we need to do now olive green. Put it off long enough. Okay. Just don't want to mess up the white shirt underneath and the lap area, and I'll be happy. I will be so happy if I do not have to go back in and fix that. Now, a little bit too much pink there, so let's wipe some off, and then get right up under the tail of the coat, wanting to flap up in the wind, because she is motoring. She is scooting along on her little scooter, huh? There we go. Now this mini has more contrasting colors than the bear. It's a little bit smaller. A little more tricky to paint. But when you get it like that and you get in there, man, that's looking good. That is so enjoyable. Now one thing I'm going to do is just take the jacket to the edge of the shirt and leave it. It won't be perfect, but I'm not worried about it. There we go. Now comes the hard part. So I think I'm going to have to get another brush. Ooh, let me get a little more paint on here first. Ooh, that's way too much paint. Okay. And then we're going to come in here like this. Ooh, it's not wanting to work. What about on this arm? Maybe I need a little more paint. So I'll just... There we go. Can I get the angle I want? Don't know. Especially with that weird bristle. I'm not using that brush. I have tried to get that and I cannot. So that's pretty close to good enough. This is the scary part for me. It's up under that arm on the insides. That is just ridiculous. Now, I know it does not have to be perfect, but I would like it to have color. So I'm trying to get some of this olive color on it. I don't want it to be black primer. There we go. Now the other arm. Okay. I can't tell if that's got paint on it or not from this angle, so maybe it won't matter. Okay, now I'll take this clean thin brush and see if I can just, oop, had a drop of water on it. Let's get that off there. That is such a small gap there. I just don't think I'm going to be able to do any better than that without messing everything up. So that's pretty good. All right. So I think I'm going to pause it here, take me a break, and I will be back later to finish these up. I'm going to let that dry really well. It's been about 30 minutes since I stopped. Took a little break. And this is not wanting to work so well this time. Why? I'll try the brush I have the paint on and see if it'll do better. I'm actually going to have to paint in this. It's not doing anywhere close to as well as it did on the bear. That is really a shame. Oh, so frustrating. So frustrating. All right. We're going to take a tiny bit of white on the tip of the brush and see if I can. Nope, I doubt it. I was gonna see if I could clean up that S with this brush. I got one bristle. I'm gonna try to bite that off. There, at least it's lower than the end of the brush. So frustrating. Here we go, that looks a little bit better. Looks a little more like an S now. It's not perfect, her helmet's not perfect, and it's frustrating me, but it might just be about as good as I'm going to be able to get. And that is one problem with me and my painting. Since these are different models, and you're switching between angles and colors and all of that, it takes longer to paint than 6 or 7 of the same model, like in an army, because once you figure out how you're doing it and you get in the rhythm, and usually you want them to be mostly uniform, and so the detail usually on those, especially if they're smaller, is not that great. And if the detail is important, then they're usually larger models. But I am just having some problems, and so that is getting me frustrated. Plus I know I'm close to being done, and so I'm getting a little more impatient, wanting to be done. That's never a good thing. That's when start making mistakes, getting impatient. Okay. Now, which brush am I going to use? Not this one. I do like that brush, but this one, does it got paint on it? Can't tell. Doesn't feel like it. Okay, let's look at that. All right. Yep, I think we're just going to do it. So I'm going to, the pink is pretty much still nice and fluid. Yeah, it looks good. I just mixed it up a little bit in case some of the colors were wanting to separate. And so we're just going to do this. One more little coat, and that should do it. That is looking good. Come in here. Yep. Like it, like it. And it's funny, I only did one coat of the olive on her jacket, and it's already looking good, but I still will add one more thin coat. There we go. Come over the fender well, try to fill that in really well. Get under the license plate, there we go. Probably should have painted all of the headlamps pink and then came back and did white over top. Then I probably wouldn't have that little black line around the headlight in places, but that's okay. That's okay. We paint and we learn. I was afraid that painting the white over top of the pink might be a little too difficult, and I did the white first. But it's okay. Either that or I could have purposely painted all of the headlamp white and then come in with the pink over top. But it's okay. Every time we paint, we learn a little bit better what we might would do next time. And I may have to get my other lamp and turn it on. It's getting just a little cloudy outside. It's still very pretty, very warm and clear and sunny, but the clouds are passing over every now and then, and I'm having trouble seeing. Let me turn my headlamp back on high. Let's see if that'll help some. It does help a little bit. As long as I keep my hand out of the way, don't cast any shadows. Not used to wearing this headlamp, so it is causing me some issues on my nose. Yeah, definitely if I was going to do this again, I probably should have, even the helmet, done one coat of pink on everything, then done the white trim. And then just got as close as I could with the rest of the coats with the pink. But that's not bad, that's not bad. Okay, that is done. Alright, let's see what we got. Make sure that is mostly clean and dry, and it is. That paint is very thin and wet still, so it went on the brush very easily. I got a little bit too much. So we're going to start back here on her back where we have lots of nice flat space to spread that paint out. And right there, it's like a buckle or something under her helmet. It's some kind of little, possibly a printing imperfection. So I just painted over it. May not look exactly right if you're staring and studying the model, but let's get up under this arm. I'm not going to worry about getting as far up under the arm as I did last time, as long as I can push some of the paint up under and wrap it around. That will be good enough. And I can tell a difference with this second coat. So even though her jacket looked good, and possibly good enough, it looks so much better with the second coat. So you've done this much work, you've come this far. Don't give up now. Put in that tiny bit of extra work to make it look that much better. So, top of the arm cuffs, I'm going to push that paint toward the inside, let it run down a little bit, and do the same thing here. Nice. Very nice. And like I say, it's not perfect because I can see underneath there is some pink on her undersleeve. I'm not going to worry about it. There is some color blending here and there, but I'm not going to worry about it. Right. I'm going to start this time with this tuft of fur coming out from under her jacket. Oh no! It ran. Let's get the extra paint off now before it dries. Wow, almost got it all. Here we go. Not bad at all. But that way, if I decide to do one more little coat of that section of fur, hopefully it'll dry well enough. That brush is just clumping up. It's curling up. I don't need to do that small detail work with this brush anymore. I need to get a different one. Use one of the other ones for that close in, small gap work. And this was definitely needed. There was still a spot or two on the tail where I could see the primer underneath, and now I'm not seeing it nearly as easy. It's getting a nice shiny orange color to it, which when it finishes drying, it will be flat. It won't be shiny, or matte, I should say. But it won't be shiny like that. But it should look much better. And again, my ears are not perfect. There is some discoloration. I'm not going to worry about that. 90% of the Great Painted Mini is better than 0%. Yes? And most people probably are not. At least my friends and family are not going to be that harsh in particular. Alright, let's try this brush. Now that paint is wanting to pull up right there, which I don't like, because there are little grooves between her fingers, and on that hand for some reason it's wanting to pull up, and it's not showing the nice contrast and the division of the fingers. So let's get some of that paint off the brush, and then try to dab out some of that paint. Here we go. Oh, glasses keep wanting to slide down my nose, or the lens does every time I lean over. And I think that is going to do it. Oh, I meant to do this earlier and I kept forgetting. See if I can do this without messing up the model itself. Give her some little red brake lights on the back of her scooter. Yep. Want to be street legal and safe. There we go. Nice. So that is the main part of the model's done. So now what I'm going to do, I gotta let her ears dry a little bit before I start touching it, but I'm going to put some tape over my fingers so that I am not messing up the paint on the model. Not getting my oils and stuff, my oily fingers on it. Let's pull this extra tape off the side. And then I'd used the wrong finger. What a dunce. Okay. So let me see if I can go ahead and get the tape off this just by holding down the side. It's still got the tape underneath. It's just not holding nearly as well as I would like. but it should be good enough. Now, let's see here. We've got the rust brown. They call it rust oxide. I like it. Let's get a drop of that on the palette. Boop. We've got the orange. I might use a little bit of that. And then we've got like the straight up gray. Yep, let's do a little bit of that. Boop. And we even have that olive green. We got a little bit of that still left. So, I'm going to just come in here. For now, I've got the olive green, so I'm going to pick out a stone here and there. Trying to find a good way to rest my hand. There we go. We'll put two close together there. We'll put one back here. I'm going to leave that brush with that paint on it, and I'm going to get a different brush. Let's get this one. Let's go with the gray. Yeah, let's come over here. Let's do this one. And let's do... I don't even think this is the true gray, is it? It says it's gray, but it looks more skin tone, but it says medium gray. Okay. And we're just randomly doing different colors here and there. And I'm not worried about if it... Oh, those aren't the right colors for the stones. This is what I want to do. I want it to be varied and colorful. This is going to be like one big stone. Yep, and then we'll do stone here. Stone here. And let's come over here with this rust color. I like this color. It looks pretty cool. Okay. There we go. So I am hoping that her ears, I should have probably done them earlier in the painting or repainting, but don't want to touch them if I don't have to. So this is absolutely a point where you could just Bob Ross it, okay? Do any color you want. You could even paint one or two like bright red or blue, make it look like graffiti or something. You could even paint some graffiti on the road. All right? So this is definitely a place where you could put in some nice varieties. So let's see, this is the gray. Let's get some more gray on there, just a little bit. And let's do this really big stone in the gray. There we go. We'll do that one. And we'll do that one. And let's do this one back here. There we go. Some of these where I accidentally rubbed off all the primer with my finger and the tape. There we go. And what color was this one again? This was the olive. Yep. Now these, since these are stone and they're on the ground, they are not the focal point. I have no problem with only doing one thick coat on them. Okay? Just pick and choose spots, put the paint, and be done with it. Because it is the street, it's well worn. Some of them will be shiny, some of them will be dull. And that will just add a little more contrast, okay? And then if you see that you've got too many of one color in a spot, then add some more color somewhere. So I'm going to look at both of them. So I'm going to add a little more orange over here on this one. Or I'm sorry, the rust color. Let's put one right up under here, close to the scooter. There's another one. And let's do this one right out here. Alright, show you what I did. Just varied the color here and there. Yep. Looks pretty cool. Now I need to clean one of these brushes. Let's see. Or I'll use one of my old brushes. It don't matter. Yeah, this will do good enough for this. Let's get some black. Yep. My black is gone. It's been used up. Let's get black. A little drop. And what color is that? Red? That's too red. Maybe I could mix the black with the orange or the black with the red, but let's just go black. Let's just go black. So I'm going to come in here. There we go. Now the black is not nearly as colorful and pretty, but it will add some variety, right? Let's see, let's do that one and this one. Here we go. And let's do a few on this one. And I'm trying to purposely do random and not look at the other model as I do it, because I don't want them to be the same bricks. They're scooting all over town. They're not in the same place very often, if ever. So let's make the rocks look different. Yeah. Okay. Alright, I'm liking that. And now I got a little bit of black left on here, so I'm going to what color do I want to go with? The red? Do I have a little bit of the red still left on the palette? Not much. Yeah. Wow, that is almost completely black. So I got to get the tiniest drop of red to mix in with that. To try to go with a dark red brick. It may not even show any difference, but let me see if I can test on one of these bricks here that I haven't painted. Ooh. Let's try this one. Yeah, I'm not seeing any difference. Okay, so let me figure out a different color then. What am I going to do with the last color? Maybe just a yellow. Maybe just a yellow. I've got the yellow ochre. So it is not bright yellow. It is a toned down yellow. Yeah, I think that will look good. So we can put 1 or 2 stones of that color on each one of them, and the stone will be done. So let me see. Where's that big one over here? Yeah. I'm gonna have to get more of that paint out. I like that, and that was the tiniest of tiny drops, and it did not want to cover enough, so there's no way I was gonna have enough paint to do both models. Do a couple of stones on both models. Oh, that's a lot of paint now. That's okay. Let's come back over here on this one. And this one. I may have painted over some of my black stones on hers, so we'll leave the rest of those. There we go. That is a bright yellow stone now. Alright, let's see what we got here. Let's do this one. Let's do this one. Paint smeared a little bit, but that's okay. How about this one behind? There we go. We'll get 2 right here. There we go. We'll leave that big one black. We'll do this one, the yellow. We'll make that like one kind of joined. And then we'll do, I think I'll come back in there with a little bit of the rust in the front. That will look pretty cool. Give it a little more color right there and right there. Let's see if I can. Oh, smeared it. Tried to just dab it off with my finger where it went onto the rim and smeared it. So let's get that off before it dries so that I can paint over that at the end. Alright, now I want these to dry fully, so make sure I got most all the stones colored some sort of color. Yeah. Alright, I don't think I want to touch her up anymore. I mean, the inside of her ears are not great, but everything else looks okay. Everything else is looking fine. Let's look at the bear. Yep, liking it. So we're going to leave those. So I'm going to let those dry for maybe an hour, and then we'll come back and try some finishing touches. So it's been a little over 30 minutes, and my neighbor's mowing. He's not beside my window anymore. He's moved on. So let's see if we can do this. I'm going to take a little bit of my dish soap. That might even be too much, but let's see. We don't want a lot, okay? And since this paint is already so much better and thinner than my old paints, we're going to try this without water. So I'm going to put like 2 or 3 drops in here. It is very thin and very dark. I'm going to mix that with that soap and see how this does. Now that seems to be a little too thick, a little too dark. So I'm going to come back with, I've got this little dropper here. This has got some distilled water in it, or purified water. Let's put a couple little drops in there. Hopefully I didn't put too much. And we want to really get this running. Really break this down. I'm going to mix it up, let it get all bubbly. Don't know if you can see. Yeah, there you go. Now it has lost some of its color because it has been so diluted, and it's got that soap in there. And even though that is clear, dye-free, perfume-free, clear dish soap, it's still got a little bit of discoloration compared to the pure black ink. So you can see how that is. So what I'm hoping, let's start with the bear, it'll be easiest to fix. So I don't want to hit the white too much if I can help it. So I'm just going to dab this off. I don't want too much. Okay? Dab it off. And then I'm just going to go right here on this coat and go down. And then we're going to go down the body of the scooter. I'm even going to do the white here. And then we'll do the stones. Okay? And it's going to look horrible at first. Okay, guys? Don't freak out. And I'll tell you what, let's do a little bit right here on this. It's a little too clean. Let's see, the blue and his ears, I'll do a little bit on that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the brush right here and I'm going to get as much of that off as I can and come right back over where I just painted and lift a lot of that paint off and just move it around. Okay, put some down here on the stones, move it around on the scooter, move it around, move it around. Don't want too much of that black building up right there on the white panel. You do want some, but not too much. So just dab that off, then come right back with the brush. Yep. I'm going to get just a little bit more to do the stones. Just a little bit more. And what I'm hoping is to get some of this paint down in the grooves around those stones. So let's really get it on thick on there. Okay, just like that. Then clean the brush. Both sides. This is a flat, mostly flat, soft brush. So then, anywhere like on his sleeve right there, you see it pulling up. Wipe it away. Because what you end up with is the paint will gather in the places like around the cuff of the sleeve or down the back and right there on the seam. Because what that's going to do is create some natural shadows, okay? And it prevents you from having to get a really small brush and push it up in there. Plus, it will also be more natural looking because now it's going to look like it's got a little dirt here and there. It's got a little discoloration here and there. So, again, just wipe the excess away, dab it off. Okay, you do not want it to be super wet and filling in the gap. Okay? Now, that white primer that's spattered around on the rocks, I'm not going to worry about it because it'll just look like sand and dirt on the road. So I'm just going to keep doing this, trying to keep the brush relatively dry and paint free when I go up onto the model and rub the brush down. Okay? And then come over here. Let's get back here. And let me see if I can zoom in and show you. Let me lift up my goggles. See what I'm doing here. Is it going to focus? There you go. So now you get a little discoloration on the scooter, on the jacket, on his fur. It doesn't look flat. It looks like light is hitting it in different places. Some places are dirty, some places are clean. So now you're going to get variance in color. That looks good. Now I'm going to do the same thing. So mix this paint up. You want to keep it fresh, keep it bubbly. You want it to look bubbly. And you want that because you want that soap to really break up that paint so that it doesn't stick super well. It will run and it will go down into the cracks and crevices. Now, again, I'm going to avoid the white fur of the ear and the white of the shirt underneath. Okay, I'm going to try to avoid a lot of the white of the helmet. Now, since I have a lot of paint on the brush right now, I'm not going anywhere near the helmet. But I will go right here on the scooter and the jacket sleeve and just do that, and then do the top of the tail here, do the jacket across, do the jacket sleeve down the scooter just like that, and down the front of the scooter and across the rocks. Now this paint, I can already tell you, it does not do a wash nearly as good as my old cheap paints, because I had to dilute them so much with water anyway just to get them to work, that it seemed to make a better wash. So this, I can already tell, is, whoa, it's doing too good of a job against that pink, and I may have to come back in with some more pink because I don't like the way it's looking. It did good on the bear. It's not doing so good here. Might have had too much on the brush, not sure. It did good on the fur there to give it some discoloration, variance in the fur texture. Yeah, I don't like her scooter being that dirty looking. Now I do like it getting in the vent right there in the nose of the scooter. I do like that. But that is just too much right there. Don't like that. So let me get some of this off, and we are going to fix that. All right. Now, I'm hoping I wouldn't need to get some more water. Okay. So let's go ahead and rinse off that brush, reform it a little bit. Then I got to paint some more pink because I do not like the way that turned out at all. So I really need to find me some better paints or just buy a simple wash. So find me a better way to make my own wash with these paints or something, because it's just not doing as well as I would like. So I'm just going to paint over. Now it's going to look weird, so I'm going to spread this out. And if you want, you can just leave it flat. Don't even worry about doing the shadowing. Now, I was afraid of that. Let me get a piece of tape. Now, let's see if I can show you. Okay, here on this side of the scooter, yeah, if you look right in here, we're getting a little bit of the black shadowing falling in. So I'm trying to make sure the top is a little cleaner, a little more pink. Now, if you don't like this, don't do it. But you can always get you a paper towel, lightly damp, and just dab off as much of that black wash as you can, and then just paint over it. And just start again with your black paint. So I'm going to come right over here on the top of the fender well, put a nice bit of paint, and then down this seam here. There we go. Now I'm going to do the same here on the front of the scooter. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a highlight. So it's looking weird right now, but it'll dry. But I'm trying to put pink paint down the seams on the top where the sun is hitting and where it's sticking out, so it's not one flat color. Let's get a little more pink under here and on top of this light. Yeah, I'm really not liking the way this paint turned into a wash. So I wanted to experiment on these minis before I moved on to some of my other minis. So now I have to decide when I get ready for my other ones, do I want to maybe purchase a couple of washes? Go. Here we go. So the front's looking pretty good. It looks like it has some dirty spots and it looks like it has some shadows, but this side is just not good at all. So we're going to really put some more paint on it. And unfortunately, I am running out of paint, which is unfortunate, very, very unfortunate, because that means I'm going to be wasting some paint. So I need tiniest drop of purple. And red. Come on. And white. And that white wanted to come out. Once it started pouring out, it wanted to run. So I'm going to mix that up right on top of the old pink. So it's not going to be 100% the same color because it's not 100% the same drop amounts, but it will be close enough that once I start painting it, it should look good. So I really wish I had done so much less of the wash on the pink. It just did not do the kind of coverage I wanted. But now we've got this other pink, and yeah, I can tell it's a little off on the color. So we're going to add, let's see, it was off too much because I like the original color so much better. Unfortunate. Here we go. Much better. Much better. Oh no, that's even worse. Oh, well, that'll teach me. If I was happy with it, I should have stuck with what I had, right? I think the problem was when I mixed it up, the white dropped out way too much. The other two dropped nice, controlled amount, and the white wanted to come out too much. So let's just add a drop of purple and see where that gets us. Yeah, I think that is getting closer. So my lessons learned, especially with these paints, not to try and make a wash and not to mess up my hard work. Right? Be happy at 90% and don't go for 100, right? There we go. So we're going to blend this in. There we go. And it doesn't matter if the bottom areas are a little black, because that will be shadows and dirt. But I don't like that much pulled up on the top of the scooter. There we go. So now we have to let that dry. Let's come back over here. So what I'm doing is, if you'll notice, I'm rubbing the top of the fender, adding a layer or two of the lighter pink, clean pink, and then I'm trying to follow the model, the seam, to make it look like it's cleaner, and also the sunlight's hitting it better. I'm going to do the same thing down this seam, just like that. There's a little seam right here. There's a seam like right there. And then we'll blend in between those spaces there. There we go. So we don't have that sharp edge anywhere except for a corner. Okay. Then right here we will make a V and then come down and make an opposite V, like an hourglass, and we will spread that paint out for some sunlight shadowing. Here we go. That is looking much better. So now we're getting color gradients and highlights. I need to let this dry a little bit more because that is a little too wet. It's wanting to spread out too much. Alright, let me take another look at the Bear Man. His turned out really well. I even like the discolorations and the areas where the black settled. So that looks good. So we're going to let her dry. And then I'm going to, and it looks like I rubbed off, I rubbed off the tip of her ear. So I will let this dry, the scooter, and see if it needs like another touch or two of paint just here or there where like the sunlight might be hitting it, to cover up some of that wash that I was not happy with. Okay, and then let that dry and we'll talk about sealing it. Oh, so frustrating. So I just added a few more highlights on the scooter, painted the fox's ear, I'm letting it rest, and I painted the base of the fox. Now I'm painting the base of the bear. I'm going to try and leave the stone rock road even with the white parts, just to look different. Although some of these look a little strange. I'll add a little more black to these too. But it is what it is. I'm not going to try to get down in the middle of those and paint. I'm just going to leave it. And then I'm going to let these dry for, I don't know, maybe a good hour. And put the first coat of clear sealer on it. 30 minutes to an hour. And then after I put the sealer on it, I'll let it rest another 30 minutes to an hour and put the second coat, and then I only have to let it set for like 10 minutes to put the third coat. But this sealer I have is not the, I ran out of my good stuff. And so this one is not quite as good and thick at covering. So I'm going to make sure I put at least 3 coats on it. Here we go. I'm really liking the way he's looking. So we will let that sit. And I will tell you, when you get ready to primer, or not primer, but seal it. Well, primer too. But I'll just show you with this. Okay. You want to hold it as far away. Well, let me just hold it as far away as you can. Okay. Get you a little mist, and then slowly move your model toward it until you get the right distance, okay? And I've got some gloves I'll wear. And what you want to do is start spraying beside your model, and then spray across, then stop. So you start beside the model and stop beside the model. You don't want to start and stop right on top of your model, because this action with your sprayer will spit little clumps and bubbles on it, and you want a clean, smooth mist. So get the edge of the cloudy mist, get your distance, and you're going to start spraying off to the side, swipe across, stop, or you're just going to go one or two times, then stop, and then twist like this, and then you'll have to make sure you get the top. But you always start and stop off to the side of your model. So let's let those dry. I will show you real quick here with her. If you notice, down the front of the scooter, like here on the edges, okay, and then over the wheel, I put a little more pink just to lighten it up, to be a highlight, okay. Now, one thing you could do if you want it with the stones, get you a really soft brush, dip it in the white, and then rub as much of the paint off as you can, and just go like that, and it'll put like little white edges on your stones. You could even do that, but I'm not gonna worry about it. I like the way it looks. The only thing I'm not liking on his is it's a little bit too much white and gray down in between the stones, but it's not bad. And yeah, so we'll leave it like that, and I will show after I let these dry, prime them, or I'm sorry, seal them with a matte sealer, then I will get you some finished shots. But if you are still watching and you're still with me, God bless you. Be safe, stay healthy, have a great day, and thanks for watching. And for those of you that just fast forward to the end, that's fine too, okay? But enjoy the photos. Thanks for coming along with me. And get to painting, guys. Get your paints out, get your minis out, and paint.